That's right, Mark. I cannot wait. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the NGX studio, Channel's NGX studio from Lagos. This is where we're doing business, 30 minutes business this morning from. So you're welcome. Let's spend the next 30 minutes doing some serious business, starting from the global space. We tell that oil prices extended gains on Tuesday amid concerns over Russian and Iranian oil supply and sanction threats, despite worries that escalating trade tariffs could dampen global economic growth. Look at the numbers for this morning. It's a whole $1.11 that has been added to Brent. That's about 1.46%, and it's now at $76.78. Yesterday, about this time, we're talking about 75. So it's going up, and we know this the implication to all of this. United States West Texas Intermediate crude also gained 99 cents. That's about 1.37% to $73.31. Both contracts posted gains of near 2% in the prior session after 3 weekly losses. We know that in the last 3 weeks we've had a lot of uncertainty, movement, and drop after President Trump took over the White House. Well, shipping of Russian oil to China and India, which is the world's major oil importers, has been significantly disrupted by U.S. sanctions last month, targeting tankers, producers, and insurers. Adding to supply jitters are U.S. sanctions on networks shipping Iranian oil to China after President Trump restored his maximum pressure on Iranian oil export last week. But countering the price gains is the latest tariff that he announced on aluminum. He did that on Monday to the United States, and it says it's going to aid struggling industries in the country. That's in the United States. The tariff will hit millions of tons of steel and aluminum imports from Canada, Brazil, Mexico, South Korea, and other countries. So we'll talk about if Nigeria can get any chance, opportunity in all of this. That'll be our conversation later on the program. We'll come back home to the Naira now. We see that there was a depreciation on the NAFEX platform, lost 2 Naira 26 kobo. That's to close at 1,506 Naira 56 kobo. NFM opened on a bullish note with higher demand for FX, and this led to depreciation also on that. And so across all levels, we saw the Naira depreciating yesterday. On NFM, it lost 3 Naira 29 kobo to close at 1,503 Naira 7 kobo, and CBN it's also lost a whole lot, 11 Naira 10 kobo, closing at 1,513 Naira 10 kobo. But the good thing is still below 1,600. That's the level we've been having for some months now. And real estate is still making headlines in Nigeria. While there are outlooks for different sectors, the real estate also got some attention from Wema Board. They say that that's Wema Board Real Estate 2025 Outlook. And participants there harped on the potential of the sector in spurring economic recovery and importance of policies targeted at developing the built environment. According to Mr. Babatunde Fashola, former Minister of Works, Nigeria's real estate sector is ripe for exponential growth, and Wema Board is moving in the right direction.
In our economic environment, what we should be doing is not finger pointing, is not blaming this or blaming that. It's really about saying that, look, if this thing is growing at 3-point-something%, which parts of it are growing well? Which are the parts that are not so doing well? And then let us concentrate our energies on finding how we can drive growth in those other areas. And I think this is a progressive attitude. Let us look at what needs to be done, and let's get on with it. And I think this is why this meeting, this convocation here, is a commendable one. What should Wema Board then do? I think that's a question at the heart of this conversation. What new thing can Wema Board do? I think the answer lies in what Wema Board has already done in over 6 decades of her existence, from when I believe she was first known as Nabani Estates, before the change of name and the change of ownership. It is true that Wema Board has a mixed portfolio of properties from residential to commercial. But for my generation and for housing and related professions, the reputation of Wema Board that still endures is that of a commercial property developer. That's what I remember Wema Board for.
Mr. Babatunde Fashola, former Minister of Works. Yesterday, there was a little bit of relief, maybe temporal, but the Nigeria Customs Service says that it has suspended the implementation of the 4% free on-board FOB charge on import as stipulated in the Nigeria Customs Service Act 2023. This decision follows some consultation, they say, with the Minister of Finance, Mr. Lawale Edun, and other stakeholders. I'm sure you've seen NECA and all others talk against it. The suspension, they say, allows for further engagement on the implementation framework and align with the expiration of contracts with service providers. It also provides an opportunity to review the customs revenue framework. The Customs Service Act 2023 aims to address funding gaps by consolidating customs revenue sources and modernizing operations through digital solutions such as risk management systems, electronic data exchange, and non-intrusive inspection. And the implementation timeline will be communicated after stakeholder consultations. Well, we are still staying with the customs this morning. We want to talk about Authorized Economic Operator Program. It's one of their programs, and we have joining us from our Abuja studio the Deputy Controller General, Tariff and Trade Department with the Nigeria Custom DCG, Caroline Niagwan, joins us, as well as the National Public Relations Officer of the Nigeria Customs Service, Assistant Controller of Customs, Abdullahi Maywada. Good morning, officers, and thank you so much for coming on Business Morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Good to have you. So let's start with DCG, Caroline. Tell us about what this program is about. I'm sure for some viewers, perhaps this is the first time they're hearing about it.
Thank you. The Authorized Economic Operator Program, AEO, is actually an initiative of the World Customs Organization, WCO, under the Safe Framework of Standard. It aims to enhance the security of the international supply chain as well as facilitate legitimate trade. Importers are given this status when they meet specific safety and security standards. They are known as trusted importers who have been compliant and reliable. And there are several benefits that come with this status. And these benefits include expedited customs clearance, simplified customs procedures, as well as reduction in cost of clearance. It also allows the importers to have enhanced trade opportunities.
All right, so let me come to PRO now. I hear that different categories of it. Could you tell us the different categories and how businesses can benefit from these categories?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Let me start by saying, as a rider to what my DCG have said, the essence of AEO is to fast track, to give preferential treatment, to give VIP treatment to compliant traders. So we have two broad categories of AEO. We have AEO simplified. And because the essence is trade facilitation, and if you get the definition of trade facilitation, it's about some elements: simplification, standardization, harmonization, and automation of custom processes and procedure. So that element of simplification, that is what gives the first category of AU, that is simplified AU. And the other category is about safety and security. Now, the AU that has to do with safety and security, if you remember, the CCC gave a background about the safe framework of standard, security of supply chain, and so on. So the AU get its own history back to the September 11 attack, and which led to a program developed by WCO in 2005 that led to the emergence of this kind of program. So we have two broad categories: AUO simplified, which is about simplification, then AUO security and safety. Thank you.
All right, you talked about World Customs Organization, and we know that the issue of trade now doesn't seem very friendly globally because of some pronouncements by President Donald Trump. What are their perspectives, talking about World Trade Organization, World Customs Service, and all that? What are they doing? Are they already adopting this program that you're telling us about?
Thank you. For the WCO, actually, this program is an initiative of WCO, but has also already been adopted by the World Trade Organization. It can be found in the World Trade Organization Trade Facilitation Agreement, where it is stipulated that fast clearance of goods are necessary for the goods to be released quickly. And in this same trade facilitation agreement, you have where customs have to collaborate with other government agencies on trade facilitation issues as well as compliance issues. So the World Trade Organization has adopted this very WCO initiative. That is why we have the AEO program also stipulated in the World Trade Organization Article 7.7, whereby all these parameters have to come to play together for the AEO to succeed. So the AEO program is actually a WCO and a WTO initiative.
Yeah, but if you could tell us how it's working there, maybe paint a picture for us. What countries are adopting it? How does it work with the WTO and the other customs services?
There are several countries like the UK, South Africa, Rwanda, Uganda are already doing this program. For the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement, which Nigeria is a signatory, it allows for goods to be for trade facilitation, which is very, very important. As the volume of goods are increasing, so also customs administrations need to facilitate the movements of these goods. So it is an initiative that would allow compliant and reliable traders to be able to clear their goods quickly out of customs control. As long as they have been found to be reliable, to be compliant, they are trusted. So customs control is reduced. And that is how this particular program is done in all these countries. It is actually very necessary for us to facilitate trade because of the volume of trade that has grown globally.
Yeah, well, I mean, when we hear customs control is reduced, I'm sure a lot of people will be happy about that, because we know more interaction and more control, also leads to some lack of transparency. But let me go to the national PRO now to tell us status in Nigeria, the status of implementation of the AEO program in Nigeria. Where are we now?
Well, let me start by saying the status of AEO implementation in Nigeria can date back to what we are doing before the piloting of the current AEO. Initially, we don't have a legal framework that backed what we are doing. So we have a quasi form of AEO, which is called Fast Track. Fast Track is not really an AEO, but it's also a trade facilitation tool which compliant traders are also leveraged to fast track the movement of their goods. Now, the new law, which is the Nigeria Customs Service Act 2023, give us the power to carry out AEO. Now, if you look at Part 12, Section 108 to Section 112 of the Nigeria Customs Service Act 2023 stipulated how AEO is going to be done, the guidelines of AEO, as well as what you need to do to get on board on those two categories of AEO. So now the first thing is to get the legal framework. Then the second issue is the political will. And the political will comes from the emergence of the Comptroller General of Customs, Bashir Adewale Edeni. He set up a technical working group from Customs, and those technical working group in collaboration with World Customs Organization, the World Bank Group, and so many agencies. We carried out so many diagnostic missions. We carried out benchmarking mission. We developed protocols for the AEO program. We developed a website for it, and we started piloting. And the piloting phase of that AEO, which is a criteria for you to move into the main launching of AEO, we started with 6 companies. And these 6 companies were drawn from different areas of trade, and they have shown some level of compliance. They have undergone a kind of rigorous audit process to make sure that they have financial solvency, and they can have channels of communication with customs, and they have a kind of a strong financial base. So we have done that. We have done the piloting, and for over a year, this pilot test is successful, and that is why we are preparing for effective or proper launch of the AEO. So we have 6 companies in the pilot stage.
All right. So what do these companies or others, what do they stand to gain? Because I'm sure businesses listening to this conversation will ask, so what comes differently for me? What's my benefits?
Well, what they need to say is, one, as the DCG have stated, it's one, there will be reduction in control. Now, if you believe you have trust that trader is compliant, which means you are going to reduce the level of check, the level of inspection. You are going to give him preferential treatment in the port. They have designated lanes that they are going to follow, and expedited clearance of those goods. I think the main benefit is, which will in turn reduce the costs of clearance, because if you are able to release your good within some hours or within some days, while others that are not compliant would be subjected to rigorous check, will be subjected to proper inspection, which means reduction in that delay, simplification in the procedures, will enhance a kind of turnover in the business process. What they are receiving in summary is preferential treatment, is VIP treatment, is expedited release of their cargoes.
Yeah, DCG, doesn't this contrast or compete with the fast track regime? Because these are supposed to be some of the benefits of beneficiaries of fast track regime.
There is actually a difference between the fast track regime and the AEO. For the fast track regime, the importers or beneficiaries are allowed to take their goods to their premises, but those goods are subjected to inspections. While for the authorized economic operators, their goods are not subjected to inspections because they have been profiled, they have been checked, their declarations have been looked at, and they have been seen to be reliable, they have been seen to be compliant, and we trust them. And these AEO beneficiaries also have integrity because they also disclose by themselves when they have infractions and then pay up the liabilities.
All right, so who are the stakeholders in the value chain of this program? Who are those concerned? Who are those who will make it work? Of course, led by the Customs Service.
The beneficiaries cut across several factors, such as importers, SMEs, freight forwarders, and logistic companies.
All right, and of course the businesses, but how can businesses initiate, if they want to be beneficiaries of this program? How do they get in? Where does it start from?
First and foremost, they start by applying. If they're eligible businesses, they apply to the customs to be adopted into this program. But they also have to meet some certain requirements, which are very, very important. They have to have demonstrated that they have met compliance and tax customs. They have been compliant to customs and tax requirements. For example, they must have been seen to have accurately completed and submitted documentations, which include commercial invoices, packing lists, certificate of origin. They must have also submitted declarations that have correct classifications, as well as paid their taxes and duties accurately and on time. And they must also have proper record keeping with which they would have to quickly produce when customs decides to audit their companies. They are also required to have proven financial solvency. They must have financial guarantee. They must also maintain adequate security and safety standards, because the idea here is security of the international supply chain. So they must have maintained this safety and security standards in their companies. They must also have established a channel of communication between them and the service, where they would have to voluntarily disclose when they have infractions.
All right, DCG Caroline Yagwa, the Deputy Controller General, Tariff and Trade Department of Nigeria Customs Service. Thank you so much, as well as Assistant Controller of Customs Abdullahi Maiwada. He is the National Public Relations Officer of the Customs Service. Thank you so much, and wish you the very best in the implementation of the program.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Well, we're still discussing trade. I have right here in the studio, well, someone from the private sector, from the customs, obviously, even though you have a color close to them. Well, we have Chimenem Walker. Chimenem Walker is a co-founder and chief executive officer of Freeze Africa. You are into digital trade and all of that. Now, we hear customs there. They are talking about trade. We see what's happening globally. We hear President Donald Trump every day. The customs here, they're trying to give businesses the assurance that there can be less control, more transparency in the system. For you, with all the news going on and the tariff and trade war and all of that, are there opportunities for Nigerian businesses?
Definitely. I think there are lots of opportunities with everything happening in America. So Trump has added what I call entropy to the system, things like tariffs, and trying to create what he sees as a stronger future for America. I think we as Africans and Nigerians have to do the same and take advantage of the opportunities that are left by these challenges. So I think the first round of tariffs came up with energy imports and exports between Canada, United States, and China. And I think China is about the largest
importer. Yes, there.
Yeah. And then Nigeria has a lot of coal. These are just like some low-hanging fruits that we can take.
Nigeria has a lot of crude, but we haven't even serviced our domestic needs, so that leaves us hanging right there.
It leaves us hanging, but then, aside from crude, we have coal, we have other things that are needed, but it doesn't have to just be energy. Higher tariffs means that more countries are going to be looking at diversifying their input sources. So if they're importing primarily from the United States or the global north, they're going to be looking other places that might even be cheaper even for them to work with. Aside that, there's probably the call for less trade with the dollar. And if Trump continues with his policy on tariffs and this trade war, there's probably going to be more calls for that. So you're already seeing the BRICS nations trying to create a chart of working with their own currencies for trade. You already have the European Union, which is already a big bloc for trade. And Africa, we have AFCFTA, we have PAPs coming up. So I'm sure they're going to be more, aside looking at diversifying their input sources, but trying to encourage more trade in other currencies apart from the dollar. And then Nigeria can take advantage of this. I think we already have an agreement with China for the Chinese yuan and renminbi swap agreement, and then try and diversify who we trade with other than America, as well as strengthening our trade with America as well.
Yeah, oh, yeah, because I mean, I was having a conversation yesterday, and someone was saying the farms seem to be emptying out in America. So, who knows? By the time they send away all the migrants who work on the farms, then they might have to be importing food. That if we can meet up to that, because having the product is one thing, but having it developed to a level of exports in meeting the standards is another thing.
True, that's true. We have so many, I wouldn't say problems, but we have so many areas for improvement that we can go with. But then, first, with an increase in demand or potential increase in demand for Nigerian made and African products, is going to result in more investment in that sector to take our products to at least global standard and at least allow us to be more competitive.
So when we talk about digital trade regulations across boards, who do you see as immediate potential partners for collaboration for Nigeria, with Nigeria, about maybe from the government and then the private sector?
I would say the government and the private sector. To be fair, it involves everybody. Everybody has a role to play. The SMEs, the large manufacturing companies, and even the consumers all have a role to play in us having a digital future when it comes to trade. But then I'll start with the government. There's the MLETR, what we call the Model Law on Electronic Trade Records, that's being adopted by about 100 countries, which Nigeria is a part of, but hasn't been implemented yet. Only been implemented by a few countries, Singapore, Bahrain, Abu Dhabi, and then England in 2023. I think that having the government to implement such a law would make it easier. I think the customs people were talking about monitoring transactions or monitoring trade of documents allows them to do that, but allows for more auditability and trust for trade transactions in Africa, and even allowing access to financing, making financing easier. So I think that's probably the foundation layer the government has to do with. But then aside that is private sector, and I'm including banks in the private sector, have to be intentional about digitizing. So be intentional about putting data on certain systems and being able to share this data as opposed to being manual with paper, which is very restrictive. Aside it being restrictive, it allows so much opportunity for fraud and other risks that come into the trade process.
And I'm glad you mentioned the banks and you mentioned PAPs earlier, because payment system is also a challenge in all of this. Even trading, you talked about AFTA, within Africa seems to be a challenge, mostly because of payment system.
Exactly. I think Africa has to, talking about like the taking advantage of the whole global trade war. Africa has to first be able to trade with itself first before it's really thinking outward. And PAPs is PAPs and AFCFTA are very good initiatives being put up, and then it will help in reducing the cost. So I think estimates have it about between 5 to 6% of the cost of sending payments for remittance based, and then for business payments about 2 to 3%. Having us trade in local African currencies and align that movement of money between different African countries would make it easier for trade to go, make it easier to meet the goals of the FCFTA.
Well, we hope that these things will work and go beyond papers and words, Well, thank you so much, Tumene Mwoka, co-founder and chief executive officer of Breeze Africa.
Thank you so much.
All right, so that's it. It was a trade day today, yes. Global, local, domestic trade. That's what we've been talking about. I know that Malpe and Ayo, they have more current affairs and politics and all that waiting for you. But that's it. I'll be back here during Business Incorporated. Ladi will be in the studio. I'll be in this studio to give you some investment tips. That's at 1 p.m. You don't want to miss it. See you then.